We will call to order the February 11th meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority, Sacramento Abandoned Vehicle Service Authority, for Thursday, February 11th. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Members Campion?
Here.
Carr?
Here.
Davis? Guerra? Hanson?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Humes?
Here.
Kennedy? McGlashan?
Here.
McGarvey?
Here.
Natoli?
Here.
Peters?
Here.
Chenier?
Thank you.
Turner?
Here.
Abdis?
Here.
Howe?
If that was Howell, that's me. Yep, I'm here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Okay, you want to read the announcement for me?
This meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocabletv.tv. Today's meeting will replay Saturday, February 13th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the back of the chambers or here at the podium, and give it to me, and you'll be called at the appropriate time. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. If you have an electronic device, I ask that you silence it now.
Okay, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And do we have anybody that's requested to speak from public comment?
No speaker slips.
Okay, then I think our executive director's report is up next.
Thank you, Chair Howell. Before we start, I want to remind everyone that we're working off an amended agenda. You should have received a agenda as early as Friday afternoon, if not Monday. So we'll look at the amended agenda. And on that agenda, there's an item 12, which was put on as a placeholder. I can now say we won't need to discuss that, so let's remove item 12 from the agenda. And now on to the executive director's report. Our Measure A revenues continue their upward trend, but not quite at the rate that we'd forecasted for this year. The February total of $10,330,000 was 3.6% above the same month last year. And through the first 8 months of fiscal year 2016, our sales tax revenues are up about 3.3%. Our forecast was at 5%, so we're running a little behind. It is time for the public agencies, the various Measure A recipient entities, to start preparing draft budgets for next year. To assist them, staff will distribute a preliminary draft fiscal year 2017 revenue forecast in the next couple of weeks. We're likely going to assume a revenue growth in the 3.5% to 4% range for next year, which is, again, below our long-term annual forecasted growth rate of 5%. The local jurisdictions can use those figures to prepare their preliminary budgets for next year, and we will come back to you in May with a revised forecast that we think will be the final forecast for next year. And then lastly, on the executive director's report, I wanted to refer Quickly to the STA's annual investment policy, which is presented in item number 7 of today's agenda packet. Remind your board that the Measure A sales tax and the countywide development impact fee revenues that we receive are parked in the county pool and in the state local agency investment fund prior to being distributed to the entities for their eligible Measure A expenditures. And then the Measure A bond proceeds that we have are invested in a special portfolio at the California Asset Management Program prior to expenditure. The STA's investment objectives in all these investment pools mirror the county pools policies, which are to focus on liquidity and preservation of principal. So with that, I will finish my remarks and answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Then we will move on to the consent items. Anybody like to discuss any of those? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Moves us on to separate items. Excuse me, item 10, informational presentation on the new federal transportation or authorization fixing America's infrastructure transportation, surface transportation, or FAST.
Congress did
So we'll
something.
quickly move into that.
There you go. Congress did something very unusual last fall, and that is they passed a long-term federal transportation authorization, which was subsequently approved by the president. So-called the FAST Act, it provides for $305 billion of transportation investments during the next 5 years. Matt Carpenter is at the podium to provide a brief overview of the FAST Act and its implications for policy and project delivery in Sacramento. Matt, as you all know, is SACOG's Director of Transportation Services.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Chair Howell, members of the board. Really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you a bit about Congress actually doing something these days. Really what happened with the FAST Act, it was passed in December of last year. And essentially what it is, it's a 5-year authorization bill for transportation funding. It begins, basically they're going to offer increased funding for this fiscal year, and then it runs through federal fiscal year 2020. Now, as with prior bills, it really covers a broad range of surface transportation needs, and it authorizes up to $300 billion of funding over a 5-year period. The funding basically follows what we call an 80-20 rule. 80% of the budget is considered highway funding, and while it's called highway funding, that also includes eligible local streets and roads as well as active transportation investments. That's the big orange slice of the pie. The other 20% of the budget is dedicated to public transit funding, and that's what you see in blue. Now, because the FAST Act just generally follows the framework that was set forward in the last federal bill, I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the key changes, but I'm also going to highlight some opportunities for the STA and local agencies to get also involved in FAST Act implementation efforts. The good news with the FAST Act is certainly that a 5-year bill offers more stability than we've had in quite a long time for transportation funding. Overall, we had not seen really any increase for some time for transportation funding. And therefore, of course, with this stability and increased funding, it's going to really help some of the planning and implementation activities for transportation projects. Most projects, of course, take multiple years to plan and then implement. The bad news, or at least risks that need to be mentioned, is that the FAST Act does not guarantee funding to the full $300 billion. The federal gas tax that funds the Highway Trust Fund, it's just not high enough to meet the $308 million authorized level through the FAST Act. Congress just simply did not solve the revenue side of this problem. The FAST Act does not include any changes in the gas tax, nor does it offer any substantial new kinds of dedicated funding toward the Highway Trust Fund. Instead, the FAST Act has a significant share, or 27% of the Highway Trust Fund is going to be supported by general fund transfers. Now, as this graphic illustrates, this is an increasing trend, and the general fund strategy is being used for filling the funding gap for transportation needs. The near-term challenge challenge is that $24 billion or 8% of the total is going to be tied up in annual appropriation cycles, meaning that it will be a year-by-year decision, that amount of funding. Long term, the challenge is that it may create something of a fiscal cliff by 2020. Without new dedicated transportation revenues, it's just simply unclear at this point if Congress will continue this ever-increasing share of the funding that's coming from the general fund and sustain this funding program levels. Now, I'm going to now just focus on the two primary funding categories in the new act. Formula funding that California and our regions gets is basically guaranteed, and this is formula funding. This is the funding that we can basically forecast over the 5-year period with some degree of certainty. And the second category is really kind of competitive funding. These are nationally competitive funding programs. And I'm going to start just highlighting some key things in the highway program. You can see that the largest share of funding is from formula funds that come directly either to California or the Sacramento region. And the small slice you see there of competitive funding is essentially made up of just two types. There are competitive grants that target certain types of investment, and then there are financing instruments. There are really kind of 5 programs that I think are important to highlight in terms of the formula side of the highway title. The only real headline here is that the FAST Act creates a new formula program related to freight. California will get an estimated just under $600 million over the 5-year period. And the Sacramento area projects will then have to compete statewide for these funds. A couple eligibility issues are highlighted. These include that you have to be on the primary highway freight system. Examples could be like Highway 99. You also have to, or other eligibility opportunities are being a critical rural freight corridor or a critical urban freight corridor. Now there is some discretion into the designation of these critical corridors, and so because of that, I think you can expect SACOG to do more work with the STA, Caltrans, and local agencies in making sure we're strategically positioned to capture those funds. The next 2 bullets are the funds that come to SACOG to then distribute down to local agencies. And you can see that the regional annual totals are quite similar for both of these programs, the Surface Transportation Program and the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grants. While they have very specific eligibility requirements, they are both quite flexible in the types of projects that they can fund. Now, every 2 years, as I think many board members know, SACOG pools these funds together and we hold a competitive funding round. We just had a funding round that concluded at the end of last year, so we anticipate another funding round in 2017. The next bullet calls out the Transportation Alternatives Program, or the TAP program, and this funding source is more restricted than the other 2 funds. In California, all of the TAP funds are pooled with other state revenues to create what you've heard of as the Active Transportation Program, very specifically committed to capital investments for bicycling and pedestrian investment. And they come then down to local agencies through either a program administered by Caltrans or a separate but linked program that SACOG manages. You can see that the total funding, though, for the TAP program only grows by a total of 4% over the 5-year period. It's a smaller increase than some of the other programs. Now, the last section just calls out a big program that is almost entirely controlled by Caltrans, and it mainly focuses on maintenance projects. This is called the National Highway Performance Program. $2 billion a year will come to California, though we see very little increase over that period. What's notable here is the issue of eligibility. The new act makes it possible now again to fund locally controlled bridges that are off-system. And so I think you can look for changes to come in eligibility that will be leading to Caltrans policy direction on the Bridge Replacement Program. The Bridge Replacement Program has been a very important program for a number of local agencies in our region. For a recent example of success was the collaboration between the cities of Sacramento and West Sacramento on the replacement of the I Street Bridge. Now, the big news about focusing on freight in the FAST Act is also reflected in the changes to the competitive highway funding piece. In addition to the formula freight funding that California is guaranteed to receive, there is a competitive pot of funding from freight that will be part of a national competition grant program. And this funding program is going to grow over time. It's a new program. It's going to start from $800 million in the first year and then grow 20% by the 2020 horizon. And you can see from the key requirements that eligibility is limited in our region. Projects must be over $100 million and focus on freight, and the smallest grants are $25 million, with only 60% would be covered by the feds. Other notable changes in the FAST Act involve some new competitive grant programs. 2 separate funding grant programs are related to transportation technology. These are characterized as Transportation for Tomorrow. And together, these grants total nearly $130 million a year. Now, there's a real opportunity here to make sure that your staff is working with SACOG and Caltrans over the next year as we start to significantly increase some technology master planning we'll be doing to identify good projects in our region. And we hope that from this work that some good projects could be identified that can then successfully compete for this program. And then finally, in terms of the funding alternatives program, it's relatively small, but I just wanted to mention that California in this case has a competitive advantage. The road user charge pilot program that's currently underway, being led by Caltrans, is one of only few nationwide. And if this pilot is successful, then the state is well positioned then to get more money to continue moving down the path of testing this as a concept.
Excuse me, so what does successful mean for the pilot? I mean, that's controversial with certainly any number of folks, and it may be embraced, but so what is success? How's that measured with that pilot?
Yeah, I think in this case, what all I'm suggesting is that if success is that with this limited and small pilot, if it's scaled up and if there's interest in doing a broader pilot, then that would be an opportunity to seek funding to test it again. I mean, if there's...
Because they have, what, 5,000 motorists that they're tracking,
the current
their
target.
miles used?
They anticipate finishing something by the end of the year, and so I think success is only enough interest to continue moving forward on this.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. And I also wanted to just include here a mention of Tiger grants, because these are, of course, very popular programs in our region and elsewhere in the country. Our region, of course, has been very successful in the past, getting grants for the Port of West Sacramento, the Sacramento Valley Station, and the Broadway Bridge. There was advocacy to include Tiger in the new federal authorization bill, but it was unsuccessful. And so, again, this will be part of the annual appropriation cycle with uncertainty if the program will happen each year. Financing instruments are the other side important to note for competitive funding in the FAST Act. And one change, just to note, is a lower authorization level for federally backed loans through the TIFIA program. Essentially, this is the government offering low-cost loans for local agencies that have local funding that can help support that. The program is shrinking from $1 billion in authorization last year to just about $300 million each year of the FAST Act. While there haven't been any TIFIA projects yet in our region, there's still the possibility that a local project could benefit from this program. For example, there is a transit-oriented development or TOD project opportunities along our light rail system that would now be eligible in the new act for TIFIA, or a similar financing tool that's offered specific to rail projects. And is there another change in the policy is that TOD projects can now be as small as $10 million for TIFIA. Other financing tools in the Act include establishing an innovative finance bureau and reauthorizing state infrastructure banks. I mean, it's very hard right now to know how much impact either of these instruments will offer, but I think it is quite likely that you will see legislation introduced over the next year or two from our state legislature to growing the California Infrastructure Bank and its role. You can see that with transit funding programs, there are also kind of 2 overall categories to call out. One is, of course, the formula funds that are guaranteed, basically, and the second are competitive funding that you just can't really forecast. The various formula programs cover a broad range of investment types, you can see. And most of these programs do come through SACOG for programming and coordination with the transit operators in our region, but a few of these programs are continuing to be managed by Caltrans.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you would go back for one before, just a question about the Tiger.
Yes.
Tiger grant's not authorized and it stays annually. I mean, it's not authorized annually? Or?
Right. Well, it's appropriated annually. I mean, the difference is the federal authorization bill, but then it will be required. It's not included in the title for the FAST Act. It's simply going to be, if it's introduced out of the appropriations process that the House and Senate do each year, then it would be introduced and be part of that year's budget. But it would be a year-to-year with no authorization for a multi-year.
So they have to go to it every year to
Right.
do anything with that.
And so
Okay.
it's something to keep inside of for cap-to-cap or local agency advocacy. If your jurisdiction really likes this program, it's just something to be tracking as you make any advocacy for the annual appropriations process.
Okay, just wanted to clarify on that because I'll be going back with the National League of Cities and cap to cap again. We'll be talking to people about transportation, and it didn't make much sense to say the grants are not authorized and that stays annually. I think.
It's a little bit of too much shorthand. We can.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. In terms of transit formula funding, we're now just receiving funding total. So I just want to qualify that the numbers you see here are very much kind of working estimates. What we are forecasting right now is that overall, the primary formula funds that we get in the region will average an increase of 2% over the 5 years of the FAST Act. A notable exception here is the dedicated money that comes to regional transit for the light rail system. As our only fixed guideway operator in the region, these funds are only coming to regional transit. It's called State of Good Repair funding, and the funding increases by nearly 13% this year. This means $1.3 million more to help support the operations of our light rail system here in Sacramento. Future year increases are also anticipated, but I don't have real numbers to share today.
Matt, can I ask you a question about that? I'm sorry, Madam Chair. So you said 1.3 million just for Sacramento? So
it's an increase. That's the net increase just for Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some very substantial increases for legacy rail systems across the country.
And then is that a by rail or by mile of rail formula?
It's more complicated than that. It has both inputs about ridership, age. It has a number of different factors that influence the formula.
Does the formula get affected by increased track related to the potential streetcar project?
It would not, this formula right now, because it's not speculative. It will only be what's implemented. So
I know, but if we did implement it, would we see an increase?
It would be a factor in the formula.
Okay.
Unless they change that, you know.
Okay.
But now that would be.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. There are really kind of important, some notable changes also to note about capital investment grants in the FAST Act regarding competitive funds. There's an overall increase of 21% in the first year, and it's important to note this because it does help projects such as the downtown riverfront streetcar that is recommended right now for $75 million in the president's budget. It also has the possibility of helping future light rail extensions that are planned and partially supported by the Measure A. The big bump in early funding is also an opportunity this year to pursue funding for intercity rail improvements. This is the first bill that allowed for intercity rail to be funded through these types of grants, and it is an opportunity to link to planning that's going underway by the Capitol Corridor, as well as some planning that's happening along the ACE trains in San Joaquin. And it also could fund further improvements to the Sacramento Valley Intermodal Station. It's also important, I think, here to note that there's a real opportunity here that the timing for the federal funding increase is coinciding with some cap-and-trade funding from the state that's very much focused on rail. So there's a real chance to look at how those two funding sources can link together for a compelling project. It's also important to note here for these capital investment grants that there was a new bus and bus facilities grant program in the new act. It's going to restore competitive national funding. It's hard right now, of course, to estimate how much the region can get, but the national totals of what's available are very encouraging. Nearly $270 million this year, increasing up to by 28% by 2020. And so again, this is an opportunity for potential coordination and then advocacy, whether it's through cap-to-cap or other venues, to have a regional voice about the need for bus and bus facilities in our region. There are also a couple of other transit grant programs to follow. I just wanted to call out the TOD pilot program that provides planning funds. Last year, SACOG worked with the City of Sacramento on a successful $1 million grant application. Other Sacramento County jurisdictions along the Gold or Blue Line could perhaps be competitive for this as well. And this program is also a real opportunity perhaps to link with TOD funding support that will eventually be provided by the STA Measure A. There's also, finally, a pilot program related to senior and disabled mobility. This has a very strong connection to new technologies. The last key part of the FAST Act that I wanted to make sure to just cover is acceleration of project delivery. Given the important focus here at the STA on keeping projects moving, I just thought it would be helpful to call out a couple of the delivery provisions in the Act. The bottom line here is just basically it's not clear yet how meaningful these provisions can be. It really comes down to the rulemaking. As with every federal bill, there's going to be a lot of policy shaping that's going to happen over the next year or two, and that's really an opportunity for California and our local agencies to work hard on trying to get the best bill rules possible. There are some encouraging signs, though, in the FAST Act. One is that they've continued the NEPA delegation to Caltrans. It continues. Believe it or not, it does make projects move sometimes faster than if we had to work through federal highways on all our projects, environmental documents. And while there is no NEPA delegation on transit projects, there is a new provision in the FAST Act about environmental streamlining for transit projects that also bring together public-private partnerships. Furthermore, there's language about holding federal agencies accountable for timely reviews and making sure that they give thorough review of environmental documents and don't unduly slow down a project. The third bullet is really essentially about CEQA and NEPA reciprocity provision. That's a really kind of interesting new provision in the Act, and it would allow for conducting environmental reviews and make approvals for projects under CEQA and not NEPA. It would avoid any redundancy between the two. The rulemaking, of course, has to happen before California can apply and become qualified, but once they do, and we anticipate that, there would be up to 25 local governments in the state that would be selected to participate. Now, I just want to end by highlighting some important opportunities for the STA and local agencies to get involved in some FAST Act implementation efforts. What you see listed are just some of the efforts that are underway or planned at Caltrans and SACOG. Each of these efforts would be strengthened by greater participation from local agencies. Through our SACOG advisory groups, we are letting agency staff stakeholders know about these efforts, but I encourage you, if you have any questions or interest in knowing more, to contact us, and we'll try to make sure we can answer your questions and match you with these opportunities. Thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions for Matt? Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
And so now, excuse me, we'll move on to item 11, status report on the Sacramento Go community outreach and public education effort.
There has been a flurry of activity the last few weeks related to Sacramento Go, which was the STA's effort to position the agency for a possible transportation sales tax measure, ballot measure in November. Today, our lead consultant, Mark Capello, is here. He's going to provide a status report along with members of his team on some of the recent community outreach and the voter research activities, along with a description of some of the upcoming tasks.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Good afternoon. Mark Capello, your consultant on this project. We're going to brief you on a few things today, go over the timeline, where we are and where we're going, a quick update on the stakeholder outreach and the media, social media work we've been doing. Alex Evans from EMC Research has 3 pieces of opinion research to update you on. I'll go over the plan for doing direct mail on behalf of the authority, and we'll give you an update on where we are on the expenditure plan. Quickly on the timeline, in January we completed both focus groups of Sacramento County voters here. EMC also completed a transit attitude study based on the national study that former Chair Hansen had encouraged us to do. In the last couple weeks of February, we'll be moving on with our direct mail to county voters. When that drops and folks have had a chance to receive it, that's when we'll complete our next poll on this topic. And within that process, in February and March, we're constantly in communication with members of the PAG, which are the staff members from all the agencies, helping us with the aspects of putting together a draft expenditure plan. April and May, possibly even March, is when we'll likely be coming back to you to unveil the work we've been doing on the expenditure plan itself. And then, of course, by June, somewhere in June, is when some real decisions have to be made. So that's an overview of the timeline. Stakeholder outreach with our partners at KP Public Affairs. We continue to work with all of you. We continue to get out and communicate with chambers of commerce, PBIDs, all kinds of business organizations, collect their feedback, make sometimes formal presentations, sometimes informal, and just collecting feedback on this topic. And even neighborhood associations and community groups, community leaders, again, just to solicit feedback, provide information, newsletter articles. And we have some detailed notes on those meetings and who we've reached out to. We can certainly provide you with that if you're interested. Earned media, we continue to see a real increase just broadly in the media over transportation issues. Obviously because of the discussion that's going on at the state level, but also a fair amount of local coverage, both kind of urged by our team, but also just in the context of what people perceive to be a real impact on kind of a slowly growing economy on the traffic out there. We've placed some op-eds, and going into the future, we'll continue to work with all of you to the extent that you would like us to reach out to your local or neighborhood publications for other op-eds. And we always, as always, continue to maintain contact with the local media, all levels of media, from the major outlets all the way down to neighborhood media. Social media, we continue to update regularly. We are kind of revamping the website. It's not up right now, but on the back end, we're revamping it, make it a little more user-friendly. We've got a new survey function.
When do we think that's going to be done?
In the next couple weeks. So the plan is that in the next couple of weeks ideally we'll be landing in folks' mailboxes with some of our literature, which I'll get to shortly. Kind of at the same time, we're going to try to raise awareness as that's going out by putting a little bit of, a really small amount of money behind some digital ads with Facebook and Twitter, so that as people are seeing this in their mailbox, it's also showing up on their smartphones and iPads.
But we need to make sure that the website's back up when that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the current website is up. I think the map function's being worked on, but the new one will be up simultaneously when we go out with this. And I can send around a preview of what we're doing just so you can all see what's taking place on the back end. So I'm happy to do that too.
Okay. I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll bring up Alex Evans now to talk about the research components. There's 3 pieces of information he's going to talk about: the attitude study, the focus groups we completed, and a short briefing on the poll that we're going to conclude with in the coming weeks.
There's your thingy. Great, thank you, Mark. Madam Chair, members of the authority, I'm Alex Evans with EMC Research, and as Mark noted, we are in the process of conducting 3 pieces of research, 2 of which we've completed the data collection, and we'll be presenting some of the key findings to date while we continue to conduct the analysis, and then talk a little bit about the survey research that is coming next. So we completed data collection on a transportation attitudinal study, and this was an interesting project where we were able to duplicate what was done on a national scale in Sacramento. And so in addition to being able to find out how people in Sacramento County feel about some transit issues, we're able to compare that data to national data. One of the things we found was that 12% of Sacramento County residents age 16 plus ride transit at least once a week. The people who are more likely to ride are younger, non-whites, lower income residents. Parents, residents of urban and mixed-use neighborhood areas are also more likely to be transit riders. Those under 30 are most likely to ride transit at least once a week, 29%. One thing we found, and this was something that came up in the focus groups as well, there are some concerns about personal safety while riding transit. 59% say that they worry about crime, disturbing behavior on public transportation, and 54% say that they would ride more if they felt safer. The voter focus groups, so 2 groups were held on January 21st. One group was among people in East County, Folsom, Citrus Heights, Fair Oaks, part of the county, and then the second was in the central and south part of the county. What we found in the focus groups were that the top priorities were repaving streets and filling potholes, road maintenance, as well as bike and pedestrian safety. Road and highway networks reviewed as inadequate. Relieving crosstown travel frustrations was also a key part of the discussion, and the Southeast Connector specifically. Need long-term plan to improve light rail by investing in cleanliness, safety, and system expansion. So in the groups, we also presented the voters with a version of what might appear on the ballot. As you're well aware, the authority can place, when you place a measure on the ballot, you get up to 75 words to describe that measure. That's what we call your ballot question. That is what voters will actually see on their ballot and what they will be voting yes or no on. So we looked at all of the past research that you had and came up with something that we believed could be a description of a measure that you might put forward. Of course, at this time in the process, we don't know exactly what you're putting forward, but we try to come up with a measure that we think could encompass what you would. Probably the most interesting result, I think, from the focus groups was that when people read this, not everyone said yes, and this isn't a quantitative survey where we're going to count up the people who say yes or no, but nobody really questioned the programs that were in the ballot question. Almost all of the talk was about accountability, a great deal of mistrust of government. So they're less concerned about the expenditure plan, which to us says the plan as presented in the 75 words is something that voters want. What they really want to know is, are you really going to do what you say you're going to do? Which is not easy to overcome, but it does put you in a better position than if you're arguing about what those projects ought to be. Again, at least from the perspective of what this 75 words includes. So more concern about trust than about what is in the expenditure plan. We also showed people some things, so we gave them maps, and you'll see some of that in the materials that Mark is going to present next. When we showed them the maps, it again reassured them that the priorities are right. They are looking for improvements in their specific areas. But as you are well aware, voters in this county are very mobile, and so they are traveling beyond their neighborhoods and beyond their cities. So they were actually also interested in things that were happening in other parts of the county. Their commutes aren't just within their own cities or neighborhoods. They're traveling throughout the county. Voters want to know that there is a plan to improve transportation in the county, and they want to know that there's accountability. Again, they kind of kept coming back to this question of, are you really going to do this? Fix It First helps communicate accountability by requiring road repairs to be prioritized. And although there are a few active light rail riders, voters recognize the importance of that. They see it as something that will be necessary as the county continues to grow. So even though they're not using it now, it has an appeal beyond the current users. They want it to be expanded, they want it to be cleaner, and they want it to be safer. So the next step for us is to conduct a voter telephone survey. It would be a representative sample of likely November voters. We will, of course, include both landlines and cell phones. It'll take about 15 minutes on average for a voter to complete. We're going to conduct 800 interviews, and we'll have a margin of error of plus or minus 3.5. As Mark suggested, we'll be doing that later this month so that we can be back to present you with results in time for you to act.
Before you leave that page.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that these kinds of surveys are moving into using cell phones. I'm just curious, how do you get cell phone numbers since they're all unlisted?
I'm glad you asked that. I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you a dirty little secret here on the air. We use the voter file, and you can use the voter file for voter research. Voters overwhelmingly give us their phone numbers. They also give us a lot of other information about themselves, so we can then use that information to find phone numbers where we don't have them. So,
I always tell people at my meetings that they don't have to put their phone number on the registration.
Yeah, I'd rather you didn't say that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And we just keep that between you and I. So the objectives of the voter survey, we want to understand the relative importance of transportation compared to other local and regional priorities. So when they go in to vote, is this something that is going to be very important to them, meaning they're more likely to try to find it on a crowded ballot and potentially vote for it. We want to quantify the perceptions of the need for local transportation funding. So we saw in the focus groups that they seem to have a lot of need, but focus groups are qualitative research. We need to go back and quantify that. We want to assess the support for various projects and program elements, evaluate potential impacts of positive and negative information about the campaign. So it's great to know where we would be if the election were held today, based on what voters know today, but we know that voters are going to learn a lot more once you're on the ballot. So we need to get a sense of what's going to happen as voters learn more. Will support grow? Will it shrink? Will it stay the same? So that we can understand what our chances are of success should you go forward in November. We want to assess the impact of the November ballot environment. There's a lot going on in November. We need to get a sense of how this measure would fare relative to potentially a crowded ballot. And then we need to understand both tax sensitivity and measures of trust. Again, the trust seems to be the more important concern, at least judged on what we saw in previous research and in the focus groups. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark, and of course I'll be available if you have any questions later. Thank you.
Just two more items on our agenda to brief you on. Brian is going to be passing out the latest drafts of our direct mail program. And again, when we started the project, what we wanted to do was instead of just a kind of one generic countywide mailer to educate folks on Measure A and on a potential upcoming plan, we wanted to get a little more creative, and we thought the best way to do that would be to communicate a little more locally with folks in the cities or communities in which they live. So we really undertook quite a task in the brochure that we've carved into 9 regions, 9 areas. And what Brian is handing out to you in the packet is the versions that apply to your city or your jurisdiction. And in the cases of the supervisors, you've got multiple versions in there so you can see what's going on in your districts. Also as a postcard. So the postcard is more of the countywide. It's a single version. We'll send out countywide, followed by the brochure, which again we've carved into 9 areas. Basically, I think the 5 cities and 4 unincorporated areas.
Spelled my name wrong.
The intent is to get those out in the next couple weeks. What we've done is we've taken, very likely voters, the voters who are most likely to have a voter history, and we've carved those voter files into the exact areas of the versions you're looking at. And so we're able to do that obviously by city lines and by census tract lines. So they'll be really precise. There won't be any overspray of folks getting those pieces who may not. Of course, nothing's foolproof, but I'm pretty sure that'll take place. So we've been working really for probably 6 weeks creating these maps and working with the various staff at the various agencies to make sure that we're technically on the right path and that the projects were right, what we're saying in the map makes sense, and we'll have a little before these go out. We'll have a little proofreading committee that goes over them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we catch everything. And
I have one for you. Folsom actually crosses Highway 50 and it goes to the connector road.
Okay.
You're missing 3,600 acres in there.
I'll grab it.
That expansion.
Yeah.
And these are, these are yours to take with you. I've had some conversations with some of you already about this, and they've been really helpful. Supervisor Peters probably wins the award for the best feedback, and we've gotten rid of the term complete streets because
Is that best or most feedback?
I think the best, actually. So we really tried to make it user-friendly and readable. And the idea, again, is to try to ensure that voters are have the best information and are as educated as possible, so that when we follow up with the poll at the end of the month or the beginning of March, that we get a true reflection of where they stand relative to a potential new tax. So if there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to, and obviously during the next week, we'll be happy to field things individually as well.
Okay, and I do have some requests. Patrick Hume first, then Don, then Roberta.
Thank you, Chair. My question goes back to what you presented, Alex. You said in the focus groups that the relief of crosstown traffic, and then you said the Capital Southeast Connector specifically. Was that a named project that people were familiar with and the concept as a standalone project?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. They know what they want. They don't know a lot about the planning that's been done on that.
Okay.
Once they see it in the map, they get it.
I was hoping for the opposite answer, but okay.
I know you were. And I was trying to find a way to
break it to me
gently.
lightly, yeah. Gently. And then my second question is on the ballot activity. Will you be testing voter fatigue? That, in other words, if the state has a measure, the school district has a measure, a local agency has a measure, will you test sort of whether it's more or less likely to succeed?
Yeah, obviously we can't test every single measure that's going to be on the ballot. We employ a number of different analytic techniques to try to get at that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, thanks. Mark, I appreciate you forwarded this, and I know that Michelle Spire and I have cross calls too, but I just, a couple of quick suggestions, and I think you've done, a good job trying to delineate communities, and you were using the same map to be consistent, I think, on the back. A couple of things come to mind. One would be that, and you call it out certainly in your direct mail, you show Rancho Marietta, but you should, if you're going to highlight the gray areas, I think you got to do Slough House, and maybe you've already got that. And particularly for your mailing to the Delta, I know that, getting that on a map, getting the tail end of the boot is difficult to get the scale and then to show that. But I think particularly for your mailing to Delta, folks that live in those communities don't just live on the arrow that says to Ileton. So I think it would be helpful, maybe you scale it in a way that some of the stuff, not that's unimportant, that they see the full picture up north, but if there's a way that you can show that when you mail it to them, because I think it shows inclusion, and some of those river roads and roads in the rural part of the Delta.
Well, perhaps they could do it like, you sometimes see maps of the U.S. where Alaska and Hawaii get moved so that they can reduce the scale on it.
Yeah, well, again, they've got the technology. Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion, Carrie. But I wanted to offer that. And the one thing that I think it goes to the top priority to fix it first. Yeah. And I don't know that maybe with this drop that it's as critical, but I think going forward, if we decide that's what we're going to do, that I think working with county transportation, at least in the unincorporated rural areas, that there are some of the main arteries, and I'll just use examples, Alta Mesa or Dillard or River Road from Cortland to Ileton, that we call out some of those as being ones that would get repaired. If in fact, I can't say that all those need it in one form or the other. So again, not to ignore the potholes and doing the repairs, ongoing maintenance, but it may help in some of those areas where, and again, I annually just in the District 5 sit with our folks and we talk about it, but with the budgetary amounts available, we don't get very many miles paved. We do some repairs and get the worst first, but I don't think that would be unhelpful to folks. And again, when we're pushing to try to get to a 2/3, a few hundred votes might make the difference. And I think if they knew that some of those roads were slated, even in the 20-year time frame, obviously some of those you needed it 20 years ago, and we may get to them in the next 5 or 10. I just think that if we call those out, it might be helpful because it brings a little more back to my neighborhood without getting too specific and unraveling your general message to everybody. So I just wanted to offer that. I didn't have a chance to share that with you, but that.
No, absolutely.
Okay,
I'll do it.
But anyway, I think you've done a good job and certainly trying to capture a lot of things in 4 pages, and I would just commend your team for that. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. McGlashan?
Thank you. I raised some questions and comments via email, and one was that regarding the cover of the document, whether that could be customized for each of them, and the response was that it could, but that it would add substantially to the cost, which I don't want to do. But I just thought, in today's world, if the inside is going to be different, why is it more expensive to customize the outside? I thought it would draw people's attention more if it was photos from their own communities rather than generic.
Yeah, well, what it does is it turns what essentially is one piece of literature with with one side that has a change to it, and turns it into 9 separate mailings. And
well, but the map is already different in each.
No, I understand, but what we were trying to do is kill 2 birds with 1 stone, trying to appeal to the countywide plan and also to local neighborhoods. So the outside is meant to convey countywide messages. The inside's supposed to convey local messages.
Well,
and this
I just thought in today's world, maybe everything doesn't have to be offset print, which I understand the difference in cost, but I think we have to get people to open the piece in order to to be interested enough to open it, to see what's inside. But I don't want to add to the cost, but I wanted to raise that question at least, and make that point. Secondly, I conveyed information on one error, and it hasn't been fixed, so I don't know if these were supposedly had been fixed from the versions we received over email and what you handed out today.
Which item were you?
On the one for what's called North Sacramento. In Antelope, the future alignment of Antelope Road is incorrect.
Okay.
It's not straight across like it shows on here. Our transportation department has that information.
Yeah, they've been extremely helpful. I thought they would have flagged this, but I'll go back to them and.
It's at yeah.
Okay.
That was it for now, except I'd like to volunteer to be on the proofreading committee.
If you're serious.
I think you've just demonstrated your qualifications for that. Any other questions? Thank you.
If you think of anything later, just let us know. And just to conclude on, and I'll probably have to go back and forth with Brian on this, on the expenditure plan development process. We've been meeting regularly with, again, the professional advisor group, which are the staff members of all the agencies, to put together the shell of a potential new plan in communications going forward and potential meetings. The next step is to finalize those costs, draft some policy language, and bring it back to the board, I think in the time frame of between March and May, with a series of workshops.
I think, we've been working with the professional advisory group, which is your public works directors, your transit general manager, paratransit general manager, to put together an expenditure plan. I think we've done some good work, and we actually have one. I think it's ready to share with you all now. It's ready for policy level discussions. So I'm going to work in the next couple of weeks. In fact, maybe by next week, I will have a draft ordinance which includes all the policy language, draft policy language, and a draft expenditure plan in it, which will actually be the model of what, if this board decides to proceed with the measure, you'll have to adopt to send to the Register of Voters. So the first draft of that will be ready next week. I'll share it with the consulting team. And I think next month it will be time for you all to start weighing in on that in a kind of a workshop-like setting at a regular board meeting, but kind of give and take. And we'll start receiving policy input because I think we've done what we can at the staff level. It's a good start, a good plan, and it's balanced. It reflects a reasonable forecast of revenues, and I think, frankly, we're ready for this board to start talking about it.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. And I'm going to make a request, just in case we end up with a gap in the executive director position, that Norm be totally up to speed in case he has to do that in advance of the new director coming in.
Certainly.
Susan?
Thank you. If you touch that, it turns my microphone off. Has anyone done any research on how much it would cost to pass this kind of measure? And would STA be able to pay for educational costs? And is there money outside of that?
Well, the STA is paying for the educational cost today, the mailers and that kind of thing. I would expect in the next fiscal year, at the beginning of the next fiscal year, several $100,000 more might be required of the STA to continue that effort. If this goes to a campaign, I would expect a campaign would need to spend $1 million plus to get the voter outreach going. That's about what the campaign spent in 2004 to renew Measure A.
And I wasn't on the board. I don't know about anyone else in 2004. Is that private sector led?
Yes, the campaign. Once we get to about August, which is a drop dead date for the STA board to send an ordinance to the registrar of voters, we rescind any further spending money on the effort, other than general information that the staff provides, and turn it over to a campaign, and the campaign needs to raise the funds privately.
So between August and November, a campaign would raise $1 million?
Yes, and unless we start ahead of time and kind of get help generate the development of a campaign committee, and they can start thinking about that a little bit earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then we move to comments of authority members, and keep in mind that we do have a closed session item.
Just one comment.
Yes?
Brian, I'm not. Will you be here again before us?
I will not.
Okay. Well,
I'll be here maybe as a pesky citizen.
And we welcome that. We welcome that. But I just wanted to have a chance to let the board know that, because they may not have understood that you wouldn't be here at the next meeting. But I want to say thank you for your 2+ decades of work at the authority. You built this authority in ways that I think at the time you came here wasn't anticipated. And you look at the map of the projects that have been completed, and it's a testament to the work of you and the staff, Norman, Bill, and everyone else on the team. And I think you have a lot to be proud of. And I just want to wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I'm going to basically, short of repeating what Steve said, thank you. I think Don and I have been here the longest of anybody that's sitting here, so it's been a pleasure working with you. We appreciate all the stuff that was accomplished over that time period, and I also want to thank you for your willingness to hang around for a while after your supposed retirement date so that we can get to the position of having a new executive director.
Well, you're very welcome. I think the agency's in good shape. I did speak with the preferred candidate yesterday morning, and he asked me a couple questions on what are pressing issues, and he did not seem surprised when I told him what needs to be done when he gets here. And so I think even though I won't be in the office when he shows up, I think the transition will be very smooth.
Okay, and hopefully you can maybe make yourself available at least by phone.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would just say ditto to what Steve and Carrie said, and it's been a real pleasure working with you, Brian. You've done good work, sometimes very quietly. Sometimes when you've been pushed to the front, you've rose to the occasion. But I think, as Member Hansen said, you look around this community and things you've been a part of, and this entity's been a part of, speak for themselves. So
thank you.
I want to wish you a great retirement and a lot of years tooling around, hopefully using public transit, riding your bicycle, or driving your car, but hopefully...
Could be paratransit, who knows?
Yeah.
We better fund it.
We better fund it. However it is you get around, a lot of good years and getting around Sacramento. Thanks for your good work.
Yeah. Just
Go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. I think STA was the first board that I was chair of, and you were able to hold my hand all the way through it. It's a little terrifying the first time you chair one of these organizations.
Well, Ms. Peters has a distinction of being one of 2 members who've served twice as chair. The other one being Mr. Jimmy Yee.
Really?
No, I did too.
Carrie,
Oh,
too.
today, right now, you're the chair, yes.
We'll share it with you, too.
They've completed 2 terms. How about that?
Assuming you complete 2 terms.
That
Carrie.
sounds so threatening.
It's either what you get for being absent from the board meeting or raising your
Yeah.
hand, talking too much. But thank you for that, and thank you for all the years. Be safe on the ski slopes.
I will be, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. With that, we will adjourn to our closed session.
Got your paperwork? Your alternatives? I do.
Appoint Jeffrey Spencer as the new executive director, and also to allow him a $15,000 reimbursement for relocation expenses, subject to the requirement that he remain employed with STA for at least 2 years.
Yes. Okay, and with that, we need a motion?
Nope, action was taken.